scary stories. So, I've just gotten out of a pretty significant relationship with someone of 4 years, nearly engaged, and moving in together, etc. When things fell apart, I took a good amount of time to be on my own and get my shit together again. When my friends began encouraging me to get back out there, needless to say, I really wasn't wanting anything at that point, nor looking for anything. But they insisted that I at least just go out on a few casual dates for practice, just to kind of get my skills back up for when I was ready. I think they were honestly just worried because I had become quite hermetic. So I matched with this girl who's home from college for the summer. She's a little out of the way from me, but was eager to meet, seemed really interesting, was even willing to come to my area, etc. I really wasn't all that interested, to be truthful, but my friends again encouraged this, practice, whatever the fuck that means. A date doesn't mean commitment, whatever. I want to be clear though, that I was extremely honest and explicit with her that I was not looking for anything serious or anything really at all. I was very forthcoming that I had gotten out of something serious, and I was just kind of encouraged to explore. She persisted and still wanted to meet, so we agreed to a casual lunch in a sports bar that week. I get there, and she was already waiting for me. I was a bit put off by how much different she looked than her pictures. Not trying to sound shallow or anything, but her pics from Tinder easily had to be at least 5 years old, which I verified based on tattoos she had in person versus ones she didn't in pics. So I was a bit thrown off by that. I wasn't the least bit attracted to her, but I was there to just have new experiences anyway, right? No big deal. I felt bad because the entire time she seemed so incredibly shy and awkward. I even noticed her hand shaking when she reached for her glasses, which I found endearing, honestly. So I did my best to get her talking and try to help her feel more relaxed. I asked her questions and chatted about things I figured you chat about on dates. Where she grew up, music she's into, school she goes to, major, etc. All to which I literally received one-word answers. It went on like this for about an hour, and she was just not working with me at all. But I tried to keep room in my heart because it was clear she was feeling anxious, and I understood that on a personal level. Then she pulls out this book and says, "I got this for you." And I responded very grateful, thanking her and inquiring what it was about. 'Cause hey, if someone wants to share a good read with me, I'm all for that. She looks at me funny and says in a very sudden but odd tone, "You're kidding, right?" I'm very confused and just kind of look at her like, "Huh?" And she says, "This is your favorite book. You told me this was your favorite book." To which I said, no? I have never even heard of this before." So we concluded that she ultimately got me confused with someone else she must have been chatting with, which I honestly found hilarious. She was embarrassed, but I made light of it and said I found it funny, 'cause I get it. That's Tinder culture, I guess. So as we finished lunch, and I'm still receiving one-word answers despite our funny moment, I kind of become a bit suggestive that we should conclude our date by saying I had to get back to feeding my animals and do some laundries, etc. But she became very adamant on spending more time and asked if we could go do something else. I was genuinely trying to be a decent person, so I agreed, and we found a nearby park to walk. That's where shit gets weird. We sit on a park bench. Mind you, it's broad daylight. There's kids playing basketball nearby, folks jogging by. I start trying to make conversation yet again, but still get the one-word answers. Then, out of seemingly nowhere, without any warning whatsoever, she proceeds to just kiss me really aggressively, tongue and everything. I was honestly just so shocked I stood there frozen, not knowing what the fuck to do. I had this timid, shy woman who's really not made conversation with me at all, who was so nervous she visibly was shaking, just turned into a frickin' bear mauling my face in like 6 seconds. My head was spinning with confusion and anxiety, and I swear it felt like it lasted forever, and I just prayed for it to stop. I was so put off and honestly a bit afraid to do or say anything. Like, what do you even do in this situation? I was just hoping that she'd pick up on my very obvious body language, that I wasn't reciprocating anything at all. I was completely unprepared for a situation like this. Then, some really nasty guy walks by gawking and catcalling, and literally begins propositioning us into a three-way, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? I need to get out of here. I was 1,000 different types of uncomfortable. I ended up managing to ward him off after telling him very politely no, more than several times. All the while she's just laughing, and I'm thinking, who even are you? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde over here? What the fuck? So he leaves, and I'm insisting now that I need to leave and go home. She seems to ignore whatever I'm saying, and gets very close to my face again and says, "Did you like that? Do you think I'm sexy? Do you want me?" When I tell you I was so fucking nervous, I was like, I really need to get home. And she was just like, "Can I come?" And I told her very firmly, no. She literally tried to persuade me to let her come back to my place with me, and I had to say no more than once, like 3 times. So finally I'm home, and frankly, just kind of shaken up. I hadn't really done the dating thing in quite a long time, but that felt very abnormal. She then texts me after she gets home and asked me out on a second date, and I was very kind despite being made incredibly uncomfortable. And I told her that I thought that she was a very cool chick and I had a nice time. Lie. But that I did not feel anything there, and reminded her I wasn't looking for anything. She then text bombed me a bunch of crazy shit, saying how she didn't understand and was so confused, that she thought I was so into her and that things went great. I did not respond to any of these because now she's continuing to cross my boundaries. I said what I needed to say, and I thought I was being decent by at least being honest. So the text continued, and I figured they were going to stop eventually because it was a first date. How can someone be so upset over someone not reciprocating on a first date? They did not stop. By reading the text, you would have probably thought that we just ended a 2-year relationship. Then she began calling, at which point I had to block her number. So nightmare Tinder girl, please, for the love of everything, let's never, ever meet again. I was 21, recently became a police officer, and was also recently dumped. So my friend suggested Tinder. As a 21-year-old and a new cop, I had the I'm invincible and I can take on anyone mentality. I matched up with a very good-looking, out-of-my-league female. We chatted and eventually set up a date to meet. She said she had a great open field to look at the stars and hang out, and we could meet up at her house. So the night came. I was excited, and she seemed to be excited when I picked her up. She guided me to the field, and it looked nice. Open space, woods, deer, and other wildlife. In the field, I noticed really dim headlights in the distance. Then the van started driving towards us and pulled up in front of us, almost close enough to block me from going forward. I told her to stay in the car and I'll go say hi. I grabbed my flashlight I had in the car and walked up. In the front driver's seat of the van, there was a decently sized man. I asked him what's going on and if he could back his car up a little bit. He was very polite and said he was the owner of the property and said he didn't mean to scare us. He told me he's been having trouble with poachers on his property and just wanted to make sure we weren't going to be shooting anything. I assured him we only came here to look at some stars and wildlife. He was perfectly okay with that, told me to have a nice date, and drove away. After that, the girl was texting nonstop. Around an hour later, I saw headlights coming towards us again, this time at a really fast pace. We hopped in the car and I moved to a more defensive position. The same man came close enough to almost hit my car. She hopped out of the car at that point and ran towards the guy. I immediately knew that I was fucked. I got out and gave them commands to back up and get on the ground. Neither of them complied. Obviously, he then proceeded to charge me and knock me to the ground. Luckily, I was able to get him on his back and get up. I saw my date grab a metal pipe from the van. She told me that she had a gun and to give me my money and my truck, and I would not get hurt. Of course, with my I'm invincible mentality, I said no. She started to cry and saying they didn't want to hurt me. When they started to go back towards the car at that point, I told them I was a cop, drew my concealed firearm, and told them to lay down on the ground. After a moment of shock from one of us, they complied. I was able to call 911, tell them my name and my badge number. I had two at gunpoint and needed to back up immediately. I gave my dispatcher the best directions I could to this field while on the phone. They both fled. Again, stupid, new cop, young guy mentality. I chased them. I took off after the man. We ran into the woods around the field. I chased him for maybe 30 seconds and heard 3 loud pops and saw muzzle flash. My invincible mentality went right out the window. I ran like hell back to my car and peeled the hell out of there. I went back to the area I picked her up in, called dispatch again, and had officers come to that location. Of course, the first officers to pull up was my sergeant and my field training officer. Of course, they were both completely understanding and did not give me any shit about it at all. The most words that they used was dumbass and stupid fucking rookie. I hopped in their car and went towards the field. Luckily, the van was still there. They told me to shut my goddamn mouth and only come out if I heard gunshots. They cleared the area and started looking in the van. They found meth right there on the center console and searched the car. What scared me the most was when my field training officer and sergeant came back to the patrol car, let me out, and told me to come look in the back of the van. Both of them were pale, looked horrified. I went to the back of the van where there were several knives, duct tape, lighter fluid, a decent amount of rifle ammunition, handcuffs, and what looked like dried blood, and the front seat passenger side. We found an AR-15 style rifle and 2 more handguns. We called for immediate backup and detectives. We then investigated the blood. It turned out it wasn't blood. The plates had been stolen and the van was reported as stolen. I still get a lot of shit about the whole encounter, but luckily no one got hurt. I will never use online dating ever again. This was 3 years ago, and I started college down the country. I was 18 and on Tinder. I never actually met anyone off of it, but I would just swipe through guys just to be nosy and see who was on it. I was swiping right on some, and about an hour after, got a message off this guy, who, according to his account, was about 20 kilometers away. We made some small talk. It was awkward, and I stopped replying. A day later, I got a friend request off of him on Facebook. Mind you, I have a common enough name, so it would have took ages for him to have found me. We have no mutual friends, and my Tinder photos is not on my Facebook account. The only thing I had on it was the university I was attending, so maybe that's how he found me, but I don't know. I then quickly got a follow request on Instagram, and he somehow found my Snapchat username. I don't have it on my social media, and it is a variation of my full name with extra added in vowels and an underscore. I was freaking out at this point. I messaged him asking him how he found out my full name, and he just replied with, "I think we have a connection. I really want to get to know you better." I unmatched him, deleted my Tinder, and blocked the accounts he tried to add me on all social media. After that, it was quiet for a few months. I was staying in digs and was knuckling down as I had a lot of assignments from the get-go. This was towards the end of November. I had no assignments due for 2 weeks, so I decided to go out with some friends. One of my friends stayed in student accommodation, and the other was commuting, so she was staying with the other friend. I decided to walk back to my digs, as my landlady would probably freak out if I wasn't home that morning, and I really wish I got a taxi instead. My walk back was about 15 minutes from the local nightclub where we were at. It was about 3 a.m. at this point. I was at the front door of the house opening up. The door was annoying as it had been 2 different locks, and I had to pull the handle towards myself to open it up. It's also tough when you're tipsy and trying not to wake up the family you're staying with. Anyway, as I finally unlock the door, a dark car pulls into the housing estate I'm staying in. It's quite big and has a big green area in the middle for children or people to play with their dogs. The car comes towards me, so I quickly get inside and lock the door. The car pulls into the driveway of the house I'm staying in and just sits there with the full headlights on. I'm there shaking and too afraid to move from crouched below the door, as there's frosted glass about halfway up. As I get the courage to go upstairs to look out my bedroom window to see who it is, the car pulls out of the driveway and speeds away. A few days later, I get a new friend request off the creepy Tinder guy on my new Facebook profile, as there was no photos on this account, just the same name, blocked. It was enough that it caused me to transfer universities the following year. Thankfully, I haven't heard anything since. I don't know if it was just bad timing or if it was that creepy guy on Tinder that sat in the driveway, but it was petrifying. If you take anything from this, be careful who you let in your social media or dating apps and what information you have up.